Welcome to the Quick Talk Podcast with Joshua Latimer, where we discuss business, life, family, faith, struggle, fire, pain, and ultimately winning.
It's time to take massive action. Look, I can't work harder on your life or business than you do. It's ultimately all on you.
You know, God created all the food the birds would ever need, but he doesn't put it in their nest. You've got to go get it.
10 out of 10 people die. So how about doing something today that actually matters while you still can? Hey everybody, welcome to the Quick Talk Podcast. How are you guys? I hope you're doing very, very, very well. I wanted to talk to you about some internet marketing type stuff that I think really applies to the service industry, but I've never heard it really discussed much. And, you know, I'll just let you guys do what you want with it because it's valuable information, and at a minimum, it's really interesting. So here's kind of my train of thought and what we're doing at SendJim that I think if you adopt this type of thinking will help you. Let me give you some backstory. So when we wanted to sell and scale SendJim, sell our product, our software, the model initially, because we really weren't even a company, we're just becoming a real company now. I mean, legally we were a company, but really before we were just a product, right? So it was a lot of hustle and just like spinning up momentum, which is what I tell you guys to do all the time. In fact, me making podcasts and doing Facebooks and webinars and going and speaking and being a ravenous circus monkey promoting my product, guess what that's the equivalent to? It's the exact same thing as you guys doing boots on the ground marketing, because that is always the stage one thing, right? You spin up a foundation, you get a momentum, and then you start assembling a team around you. And it's funny because that's literally what I'm doing here. And it is paralleling what you're doing with a home service company because the process is the same, really. The guts of companies are really similar. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And there are parallels with software that can tie back into your home service company. For example, like one of the benefits of a software company and one of the reasons I wanted to get into this business, I mean, I guess it evolved because originally the software that I built, the SendJim, was going to be a tool just to use for my own cleaning business. Back in the day, it was going to be a secret weapon where you could actually quickly mail out postcards with pictures of their actual house on the front of the postcard, because the response rates were really high on those cards, like over 5% when I was doing it manually, testing it. So we were going to build an app for ourselves. And then I realized that the software business might be a really good idea and other people would want this. So we went down that road, right? Well, that was like 5 years ago when I started hand sketching out the wireframes for our app, right? And I still had my cleaning business. The reason I'm telling you all that is I started out by spinning up initial momentum, but now we're building a real company, building a team around us and all that type of stuff. But what's awesome about the software industry is when you sell a software company, you get a way higher multiple than you would on selling a home service company. And so each different industry has different kind of standards on the multiple that you can get when you sell. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, it's actually really simple. So the way that you get a business valuation is using this idea called a multiple. It's pretty simple. So let's say you have a company that does $500,000 in total sales or revenue, right? That's how many dollars are collected and done in a calendar year. And then you pay your crews and you pay your office rent and you pay your insurance, you pay your taxes, and you pay yourself a fair market rate salary for however many hours you worked in the company. Let's say that you had $100,000 left over after doing that. Well, what that means is that you have a net margin of 20%, right? Because 100,000 is 20% of 500,000. And the way you come up with a multiple, there's a lot of factors, but the big ones are how automated is the business, how established is the business, how diversified is the customer base, you know, is there any like risk exposure, because maybe you do have a $500,000 business, but you only have 3 clients, right? And if you lose one of them, a third of your revenue is gone, right? There's things like that. How strong is the brand? How dependent is the business on you personally? Could you step away? So all of those types of things will affect what multiple you get. But there's still typically a range. So for home service companies, that range is typically between 1 and 5. And it can be higher. I've seen higher, but it's really rare, and you have to have a really freaking awesome business in a great market with an aggressive buyer that has some strategic reason for wanting to buy there, right? So what that would mean is, in my example, that $100,000 net profit business that did $500,000 in revenue, they might get a multiple of like 2 or 3. So if they wanted to sell their company, the sales price would be $200,000 or $300,000 on average for most companies. We got a lot higher multiple in my company, partially due to luck, because the people buying us really wanted a business in Michigan like ours, and they had a lot of capital at the time, and partially because it was super automated. I hadn't had to touch it in a couple of years. Everything was documented, systemized. I had a full team, right? Which is awesome. So it was kind of like the perfect storm. But with a software company, the multiple that you can sell your software company for is a lot higher than that. Some software companies sell for multiples of 30 or even more. And not usually really small software companies, but like that happens. And the reason why, excuse me, that they sell for such a higher multiple is because of this thing called MRR. MRR is monthly reoccurring revenue. And like, let's look at like a CRM, for example. A CRM, you got Service Monster and House Call Pro, and you got Jobber, and you got Customer Factor and Service Autopilot and Service Titan, and there's like all these CRMs. And all the industries have a CRM. Dentists have a certain types of CRMs, and lawyers have different ones, and everybody, right? Grocery stores essentially have CRMs with rewards programs and stuff. But what's cool about a CRM, and we are not a CRM, by the way, which stands for Customer Relationship Management Software, if you're wondering. I'm super sorry if I'm getting way too nerdy, but there's a portion of you guys out there that I think will really appreciate and understand what I'm saying here. What's cool is that the product's really sticky. And so every month, the users are paying a monthly fee, and there's a lot of pain involved for a company to leave a CRM. For example, if you're a carpet cleaner and you have 3 or 4 trucks and your entire team is trained on Service Monster, for example, and they all log in there, they clock in, they clock out, all their jobs are there, that's where you invoice, that's where you like do your QuickBooks, everything's tied into that one foundational piece of software. That's why CRMs are so sticky. For you to switch, if any of you have switched, it's a giant pain in the butt. You can do it, but it's a pain in the butt. That's really good for a business valuation because you're most likely just going to keep paying the $100 a month or whatever it costs for the CRM. And so every customer you have that pays a monthly fee adds to your business's MRR, monthly reoccurring revenue. And when you have a stable, sticky service that has a good historical data about being sticky and you can prove it, and that MRR is going up month over month over month, you can sell a software company, even a little one, at least for a multiple of 8 to 12, right? If you're making, $1 million a year in profit, you could sell that for $10 million. That's pretty cool, right? Because if you had a service company that made $1 million a year, you might only be able to sell it for like $3 million or $4 million. And there's a lot more in-depth stuff that I won't get into, but here's what I mean. How can you take your home service company and think of a way to craft an offer that is a reoccurring monthly offer? This has a lot of benefits, and it's actually like a secret thing that's starting to happen in the service industry. There are companies doing this. Most of them that are doing it well are being very quiet about it because it's like a secret weapon. And they're starting to shift their thinking on how they make revenue. So instead of doing a house wash and you charge them $800, or you do some other service and charge $500 that one time, and maybe you see them once a year, people are trying to help sell, I just said hell on accident. People are trying to sell like home service maintenance packages, things like that, where they can get a credit card and it's, $79 a month year round, and it includes this in the spring and this in the fall and whatever. And what's really cool about the time that we live right now, it's like the specific time of 2018, is that people are more trained than ever to have reoccurring monthly billing for all kinds of stuff. We got our Netflix, you got your Hulu thing. We have, Amazon Prime, that's an annual billing, but it's still a reoccurring thing, right? People are trained. And when credit cards first came out, it was weird. Like, people didn't want that. They were scared of it. Now people embrace it. And I think there's I know for a fact there's an opportunity with home service companies, because I have a couple friends that have over $50,000 a month in MRR just from window cleaning. And these are residential accounts. And what's really cool is it stabilizes your revenue, right? Like, imagine the first of the month, every month you get $10,000 deposited from a handful of people who are on this program. It's called a continuity program. Like any kind of monthly reoccurring thing is called continuity. And in software, like, that is like a buzzword, right? You want continuity. Or even people that sell online courses like I do, I've sold online courses with Automaker Sell and sold hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of that. And then we have the super course coming out. We're going to sell millions of dollars worth of that just this year. It's really cool, but where's the continuity piece? So you make a bunch of money one time, but how do you keep it going so that you have stable financial foundation, right? And so you can continue to develop the product and stuff. Well, with your home service company, what if this year you sat down and put your creative thinking cap on and thought of some really cool ways to put together some sort of continuity program to sell to a portion of your customers? And what if you worked on that sales process and defined it and finally got it right? And what if it took 3 months of hard work and everybody said no, but then finally someone said yes, and then you tweaked it, and then 3 people say yes, and then 100 people say yes? What it would do for you is, number one, it would help tremendously with the financial uncertainty that is a normal part of having a seasonal home service company, which is huge. Number two is it would help your employees be able to carry through maybe some of the slow months, right? And number three, it sets you up to sell your business for a higher multiple later by a lot, right? Like there's a really big argument to be made that your company's worth more because you have, $60,000 a month in reoccurring, continuity payments, and no one else is doing that. And number four, it gives you a competitive advantage because nobody's doing this. Like it's super rare. And I don't know, I just think there's something there with that. I think it's amazing. And the other thing I want you guys to keep in mind is that whoever can spend the most money to acquire a customer typically wins. And one of the biggest reasons people get stuck and their business is just a mess and they can't grow fast enough, they can't hire, there's not enough margin there, their foundation isn't big enough for them to buy equipment they need or do anything, is because they don't spend enough money acquiring customers. And it's a catch-22 because if you start a company and pay yourself a huge percentage of the money you make, and that's how you train yourself. That's the habit that you start out with, and then you fast forward 5 years, and maybe you're doing $200,000 or $300,000, but you're taking $80,000 in the salary. You're choking your own ability to scale. But now your lifestyle is kind of locked in, and your wife and kids, you go on vacation in June, and you have a four-wheeler, and you live a certain particular way. But what you don't understand is that you're killing your own ability to grow, and you're actually at risk. It's more risky to have a little business like that that's dependent on you. But you also can't get out of it because there's not enough free cash flow for you to scale. Does that make sense? Is your brain about to explode? I love talking about deeper, more complex things, but sometimes I get nervous in the podcast because I'm not sure kind of where everybody's at or if they'll respond to this or if it'll go over your head. So give me some feedback. Let me know if this is really getting the creative juices flowing. Because I know for me, if I still had my company, I would have already launched a continuity program a long time ago. It was already on the drawing board when we sold. It was going to happen. And this is before I had heard of anybody even doing it. For me, I'm always trying to look at that next thing. What is that next opportunity? How can you get ahead of the curve? How can you live in the future just enough to keep yourself at a competitive advantage with your competitors, right? By the time they're copying you, you've already moved 2 steps down the road, right? That's where you want to be. That's where you want to live. That's where all the wealth is, the opportunity is, and it's really exciting. It's exciting, and customers aren't being sold home services in this way. Typically, certain home services are kind of continuity-ish by design, like a homemade service, for example. They get paid every week that they go there or whatever. So that's a little bit different. But if you have a carpet cleaning business or a business that's seasonal and you make a bunch of money once or twice a year, what if we could spread that out a little bit? And the other benefits of this, by the way, is you can start building routes and you can start scheduling people way in advance because they might be paying a small monthly payment, but you know that this year you have to do these 3 or 4 different services, and you know it a year in advance. So when you start booking and scheduling, you can have ultra efficient routes set up. It's an amazing thing. And I'm still working on one guy to get him to come on the podcast and explain how he does it and just give up the goods. But why would he want to? Right? He's got a secret weapon. So anyway, I think it's cool. And just remember that I know what I was going to say. The company that can spend the most money to acquire a customer wins. Well, it's hard to do that when you have a low ticket initial offer. So a lot of companies in retail, for example, like Coke, they might do a sale on Coca-Cola that's really so cheap that they lose money, but it gets you drinking Coca-Cola again. And they're cool with that because in the long run, you're going to buy more Coca-Cola, right? They call that what do they call that? A loss leader. Or sometimes a grocery store will do that. But you can't really do that. You can't afford to do that. You can't market and say, we'll do a $19.95 special to clean your roof just so you can get that customer for later, like that doesn't work and I wouldn't recommend it. But what I would recommend is what if you could raise the average ticket of the initial transaction of the thing that you're selling new customers first so that you could afford to spend a lot of money marketing, and then you take those people and you sell them into a continuity thing. So you might have like a really premium front end offer, a service that you provide, but your real goal is just to break even on that because you're going to spend a huge percentage of that on massive marketing so you can dominate your area, be a nightmare to compete with, and like every homeowner will know who you are. And you might not be profitable even though you're making a good chunk in the beginning, but if you're throwing them into a continuity in the back, how sweet would that be? Essentially, that's the business model for Send Jim this year. That's how it's going to work. Like when you guys see me start selling the super course, which is amazing, it's amazing. I believe in it so much. I have over 45 video testimonials of people that have already went through it. It's like, it's freaking me out. Like I've cried several times just watching the video testimonials because it's like an emotional thing because we worked so hard on this thing for so long and it's finally going to come out. It's worth every penny and I believe in it. I'm passionate about it. But from a business perspective, the reason we even did this, and I did this because of Russell Brunson. I literally am doing what he said. So take that as a note too, because do what your coach says to do exactly, and good things will happen. But anyway, what we're doing is instead of selling people Send Jim and me convincing them, hey, give us $99 a month, it's really awesome, because it is awesome, but like it's still a whole process for people to like look at it and decide if they need it and whatever. And it's hard to sell people a tool, right? So they don't want a tool. They don't want another thing. They don't want to learn another thing. Even though they might think the tool's awesome, they're like, well, yeah, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. But when you sell someone information, in my case, it feels different, right? So like when you go to the store and you buy a book, doesn't it feel like you feel good about yourself just for buying the book? I know that I do. Like I legit feel like smarter just for holding a nice, expensive hardcover book. I'm like, I am so awesome that I own this book. And like it doesn't make sense logically because I haven't applied anything yet, but I feel different when I purchase and invest in my own self, my own education. So the super course is going to have that effect because they're not buying a tool, they're investing in their own education, their own brain. It will permanently level up their ability to lead and grow their company. So it's easier for them to spend $1,000 on an info product that's going to deliver this massive life-changing thing. And then what we do is we include 3 months free of Send Jim. And then on that 4th month, they're going to start paying. And then now we have our continuity, which our real goal is to get the continuity. So all that money we sell in the course, even though it's going to be millions, the real plan is to spend a huge percentage of that back on ads for cold traffic because I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm tapping out my little tribe and we need to scale really fast. So how do we take hundreds of thousands of dollars and go into the cold market, people who don't know me, like me, or trust me, they don't care about Send Jim, know about Send Jim. How do we have enough money and capital to get in front of them and to make our case and push them into the super course, and then in turn 3 months later, then they fall into continuity? That's our plan. And I promised you guys at the beginning of this year that I was going to do a podcast every day. And I promised you that I was going to be transparent. I love following people that just tell me the truth about what's going on behind the scenes. I learn a lot from it. It's interesting. It makes me connect better with them. And that's my goal with this podcast. Like I want you to, there's nothing to hide, right? We're a small family business. We have really big goals, and this is the path for us. But with your company, if you want to have big goals, sometimes you got to think outside the box. Sometimes you don't do things exactly the same way other people do it. And I think learning about continuity is huge for you, and also finding a way to spend more money to acquire a customer. If you can only afford to spend $50 to acquire a customer, what would it do for your business if you could spend $200 and acquire a customer and have it still be profitable? That would be awesome, right? Like you could be everywhere. You'd be like locally famous. Everybody'd be like, oh my gosh, look I see your signs everywhere. I see your trucks everywhere. You're on the radio. You're famous. That'd be great. It'd be great for your company. So that's it. Hey, listen, guys, share this episode. Share it. Share it. Please share it. Please share it. Copy the link. Go into Facebook, go into LinkedIn, find a group, tag your friends in it, and tell them to stop what they're doing and listen to this podcast because it will help them. And guess what happens to you? The universe will reward you for being so generous and kind and nice. Plus, I'm going to give you a super awesome digital high five right now in advance because I know that you're about to share it right now. So thank you. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care. God bless. Hey, thanks for hanging out, friends. And from all of us here at the Quick Talk Podcast team, we hope you loved today's show. We hope that you were inspired to become a doer and not just a listener. Apply what you've heard today in your own business and watch things change for the better. Lastly, remember that all the money in the world can't save your soul. Seek first the kingdom of God, my friends. We'll see you next time.
For more information about the Quick Talk Podcast or Joshua's other businesses, visit our website, quicktalkpodcast.com. Have a blessed day.